What's up, everyone? Welcome here for a round two edition of Panthers versus the World. And I'm very excited to get started here, but first, got to introduce, as always, shout out to our producer, Joel, behind the scenes. And with me is my co host, Jeremy. Jeremy, how are you feeling for this round two matchup?
Nervous. However, just looking forward to it.
I agree with you there. Yeah, first, everyone, please, if this is your first time here, please like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate all the support, and we look forward to many, many more of these, hopefully. Um, yeah, we're going to be here for hopefully a long time continuing these, but we'll get right into it here. Um, Honestly, what a series between Toronto and Boston. Went right down to the wire. Me personally, I was cheering for the Leafs because I do think that like I always have like a soft spot in my heart. I feel like for them, but to be quite frank, I thought they're better than Boston. Like I don't think much of this Boston team. I thought the Leafs would give the Panthers a harder challenge. So that's just where I'm at before we get into it much further about this matchup itself. But yeah, I was rooting for the Leafs, but I did think this would be the more favorable matchup for the Panthers.
I kind of felt the opposite way. I kind of felt like, I mean, I didn't really. It's hard to say because I feel confident. Oh, I didn't say. I'm not saying I don't think they're gonna win, but I ain't. I didn't like either matchup just because both teams showed to do really well in the regular season against us, and regular season against postseason, obviously different scenarios. Obviously, I mean, we showed we could handle the pressure last year. We took on both of them, and we beat both of them. But I mean, I kind of wanted to see Toronto just embarrass Boston again, which would have been funny. But also, I kind of felt like we matched a little bit better against Toronto because the fact that they have a huge question mark at goalie, and I felt like we had a lot better of a chance to beat someone like Samsonov or Wool over Swayman slash Allmark, whoever. I mean, it's most likely going to be Swayman, but whoever they decided to go there. But I felt like we had a better chance if we had faced one of those two goalies rather than Swayman. But I'll take Boston. We can beat Swayman. We can do it. We just beat Vasilevsky, one of the best goalies on earth. We can beat Vasilevsky. We can beat anybody. So, let's go.
Yeah. I'm gonna try to toe the line here of not sounding overly cocky, but I think it's hard not to be once you hear my series prediction, which we'll get into. Yeah, I'm gonna try to toe the line of not sounding overly cocky while still saying like this is a playoffs. Like anything can happen, as we know last year. I think the Panthers know that anything can happen. But top to bottom, I just don't see where this how this Boston roster, honestly, to be quite frank, has a chance in this series. The only way I could see a path to victory in this series for Boston is Jeremy Swayman or Allmark, if he does come in, is going to have to completely steal 4 games, which is a possibility. I mean, we not saying that's impossible to happen, but that's it. I don't see this um, Boston having much of a chance if this is a higher scoring series. Like Boston completely has to take this into the muck, has to make this a dirty, grimy battle, low scoring, keep it tight into the third period, and then make it just next goal win because they don't have the firepower to keep up with the Panthers at forward. Their defenders are not as good as us. And then honestly, I think the matchup between Swayman and Bob, or if you want to say both goalies in Stolars and Omar, count them there too. I think the matchup's kind of a wash. But with there being a bit of rest for the Panthers, sometimes that's not ideal for goalies to sit for a little bit. And Swayman's still hot. He's played fantastic in the series. I think, to be honest, won the series for the Bruins, especially in the last 3 games. He's the only reason they even had a chance. I thought Toronto was dominating them in the last 3 games.
No, I completely agree. I think the only game where I thought Boston wasn't pretty impressive was actually Game 7. And even then, they gave Toronto way too many opportunities to take that series. And all it took was a Hampus Lindholm little floater that got by. Actually, it was a good shot, but it got by Samsonov, and then of course the David Pastrnak goal at the very end. Great play, by the way, from Pasta. That's just a goal scorer's play. Just amazing read, amazing play all around from the team. But obviously, again, looking at the series, uh, Boston isn't as deep as they were last year, and that's going to be a huge question mark for them. Can they beat Florida? They couldn't beat Florida last year when they had a much deeper roster. So can they do it this year instead? With they lost Bertuzzi in the offseason. He was a big reason why they had a 3-1 series lead on Florida. He was a big reason in Game 1. He was a big part of all the games. He was just in front of Bob, making him just hard to play against. They don't have Taylor Hall anymore. He was a big reason why Boston was really good last year too. So I mean, they lost some key players, and I think they're at this point. It looks like their saving grace might be A, Pastrnak, and B, Swayman. And if the Panthers are able to shut down Pastrnak like they were with Kucherov, I mean, it's going to be very tough for Boston to win the series. But you can't count Boston out because they're a historical amazing franchise, and they can turn the tide on them whenever they want to. So I mean, I'm still definitely tempering my expectations, but I'm hoping for more of the same as we saw against Tampa, and just handle the penalty kill. Defense plays well, we should be able to make it past.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of just how I'm thinking about it, like not getting into the matchup itself is from just like a 1,000 foot view. The Panthers are better than they were last year, all around, and the Bruins are worse than they were last year. If you put those two together, I think the
Simple as that, yeah.
Panthers, yeah, and the way also I see it is this Toronto, we're way better than Toronto just on paper and the style of the playoffs and everything are 100%. I think you would say the Panthers have the advantage there. And this is a Boston team that they struggled against Toronto. They took them to the brink, took overtime in game 7. And like you said, just an amazing play from Lindholm and Pastrnak. Like just honestly, it looked to me like, and I think everyone says it. I didn't necessarily think that was like a design play. Like they practiced that so many times and it worked. And that's, why you practice those plays. It was just incredible for them. And yeah, I mean, sometimes like I've been saying for the Leafs, I guess it flips now to the Bruins, like the confidence of just a magical moment like that getting through is all the boost you need. Yeah, I do think Boston is like a savvy veteran team where they know all this though. They know that the only way they can win this is if Swayman or Allmark just completely shows up here and robs a few games for them. So this could be interesting. I do think, honestly, to be quite frank, I think Tampa probably would have beaten Boston. That to me is another reason why I like the Panthers' chances so much in this. And then we could talk more about sort of the lineup and lines itself. But yeah, I mean, I feel great. I feel very optimistic. And we'll touch on the game tonight after, but we'll stick to the series here for a little more.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. If Tampa did face Boston, that actually would have been a nice series to watch too. Actually, I think that would have been another one that probably would have gone 7 games. But I mean, they got to face the weaker of the 2 goalies when it came down to Wool and Samsonov versus one of the best goalies on the planet in Vasilevsky. So I mean, it would have been a good one, but actually, yeah, I agree with you. I think that Tampa would have been a better matchup than Toronto would have been for Boston. But nonetheless, though, in my opinion, there were 4 very deep teams entering the playoffs. I think Vegas, Florida, Carolina, and New York were the 4 deepest teams, in my opinion, entering the playoffs. One of them is now gone. Vegas lost last night to Dallas. And Florida, Carolina, and New York are all still alive. And eventually, if Florida goes ahead and beats Boston because they're so deep, then you're going to have to face one of them. And I think that's what's going to happen. But I mean, the Panthers are just they're a much deeper team. They're a better team overall, like you said before. And I think we're getting some of the best plays from Bob right now. So I mean, it's very understandable why the Panthers are entering the series as a favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm taking just a look right now to read it exactly. I think this is very interesting. I kind of want to talk about this a little, but like the lines for game one, um, the Panthers are going with the big three, super line one with Verhage, Barkov, and Kachuk, which I am very excited to see. When it first when they did this in Game Five as well versus Tampa, so I don't think it's like a completely new and foreign for it to be happening. Like this isn't the first time they're playing together. But I just thought it was interesting and kind of in my mind, like I just was like, well, look, if they can shut down this line though, Boston, like then what else do we really have here? Because the other line as goes, it's just line two is Listerine and Lundell Reinhardt, who played together all last year. Rodriguez, Stenlund, Tarasenko, and then Cousins, Lawrence, Okposo. Um, and then the decor is the same from last series. But I think this is really interesting with the Panthers being home for the first two games and having last change. That line of Verhage, Barkov, Kachuk, like I don't know how you have an answer for that. Like when the Panthers are going to put out that line against whoever they want to. I'm sure Maurice like has a plan here, and I think this line is just going to completely dominate. As I've said before, whenever people play with Barkov, they seem to have career years. I don't know what it is he is doing, but the thought of Matthew Tkachuk, who scored 100 points, plus points without Barkov, now getting to play with Barkov, not only on the power play, but 5-on-5 also. For other teams, I think it should be terrifying. And I'm so excited. I think just that line is going to just wreak havoc, like, and just be absolutely dynamite in this series. Or at least in my mind, what I think they're going to do is game one and two. They'll keep that line together, and then possibly when Boston has last change, maybe split them apart. This also is contingent on Bennett, which is now day to day. Who knows what that means again? But
So
I
we're
think
getting
once Bennett,
closer.
yeah, once Bennett comes back in, I think the lines may get reshuffled unless this line is just like the best thing ever and you can't take them apart. But that's just my thought. I'm super excited to see that line tonight.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I remember yesterday just like scrolling my phone, seeing the lines, and they said it's gonna be for Verhage, Barkov, and Kachuk all in line one. And I was like, okay, well, this just reminds me of one thing. This reminds me of Avengers Endgame when they're putting all the stones together, and that's what it honestly feels like. And then you look across the ice, and you have the three best players on Florida all on the same line, and then you have Gustav Forsling and Ekblad behind them, and Bob and Nat. I was like, oh man, Boston would be any team would be fearing that line. But most importantly, I mean, Kachuk is so good by himself. And then you pair him. This was what feels like the 2018-2019 Panthers when you had Huberto and Barkov on the same line, just wreaking havoc every single night. And then you split them up, and then you had two amazing lines again because both of them were just amazing on their own and were able to elevate other players. But then you have Barkov now being able to go ahead and elevate Kachuk eventually. And I mean, that line's going to be one of the best lines in playoff hockey right now. I mean, you have some Barkov, especially with how physical he's been recently. I mean, it could be a very physical line. It's going to be a very good all around line. And I can't wait to see how Kachuk fares with the best player in arguably franchise history on his line. It's going to be really
Yeah,
fun to watch.
yeah, the sky's the limit. Like honestly, I don't even know what to expect, but I just expect I expect greatness. Like I don't know another way to put it. And then conversely, when you look at the Bruins lines, I mean just the centers that the Bruins have are I'm not pathetic because these guys are all NHL players, but they don't have like a first line or a second line center on this lineup. Like right now, it's the first line is Marchand, Coyle, DeBrus. Second line is Zaka, Geeky, Pasternak, and then Van Riemsdyk, Trent Frederick, Brazo, and then Beecher, Brown, and Maroon. I mean, I don't even know if any of the one-to-one matchups for centers favor the Bruins. I don't think it does. Maybe you could argue Geeky, Lundell, but You could also as well just slide Reinhardt into the center position there. And then I would say that definitely no. Then the Bruins don't have any advantage in the center position, which is super key in the playoffs. Like you got to have good center depth in the playoffs. So again, just another reason why I think the Panthers are completely the superior team here in this matchup. So yeah, I just think that matchup wise, you look at this on paper, you look at it from the Panthers have rest. You look at everything here. I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing thinking about this series and how it could go for the Panthers.
Yeah, and getting back to the center depth that you were talking about before, I was really impressed with how Boston fared. Their third line with Van Riemsdyk, I thought it was really good. I thought it was really strong against Toronto. It created a lot of good opportunities for them, but I don't think it can really compare to Florida's. And I don't think, and I think Florida's fourth line will be able to shut down most of the lines. It might not be. It might struggle against this line with Pastrnak on it because Pastrnak is just incredible. But same with Marchand. But still, I think the fourth line, now they get Lomberg back, and Lomberg was a big key in play driving and shutting down those lines with his physicality. So I could really see the fourth line having a nice little run here against Boston, being able to shut down some of the lines. And I think the third line will be really good too. Will be really strong. So I look forward to seeing how Florida's lines do fare against Boston's. But I mean, I do think that Florida's lines, with how deep they are, I just don't think it can compare.
Yeah, yeah. I think just when you look at this, like the one sort of question mark that I would have is the fourth line with like I would say maybe that's a slight advantage to the Bruins, with just Pat Maroon. I don't want to say like a career resurgence because he's never like every year he's been
He's
completely
also been a
fine
thorn
wherever
in the
he's
Panthers'
gone, like
back.
underrated always,
Yeah, I agree.
forever. Yep,
Marin has
yep,
been
yep.
Marin who's been a thorn in our back for years. So, and I don't think we faced him last year. I don't think we faced him. We might have, but I don't remember facing him last year.
I can't remember where he
Um,
was, but yeah, I don't think we did because he wasn't on the Lightning last year, I believe.
no,
I
he
don't know.
left the
I'll double
Lightning
check.
after their runs to the Cup final. I think he left Tampa, and yeah, this is our first time meeting him since the whole probably chicken wing thing. Actually, that was the year before, but he's been a thorn in our back for years, and that's the conversation. I really want to beat him.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I do too. Yeah, and honestly, just as being like a Florida fan, I always love going against like the Bostons of the world, Toronto's like New York, the big cities. Like it's always fun. Like no matter what, I think this series is going to be, um, it's going to be good. It's going to be intense. It's going to be physical. While the Bruins, I do think are beat up from the series. Like they're smart here. Like this would be something where if this game gets out of hand, either team would I think begin starting brawls, look to set the tone, that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, like part of the reason I think the Bruins they had the advantage in the first few games against the Leafs. Just Marchand was just a pest in their side, and I don't think he'll have the same effect in this series because he's 36 now, I believe. Um, B, there's a lot of guys on this team who will match his physicality and scrappiness and not dirty. He does get the reputation of dirty, but like if you watch any player, I feel like they do just as many things as Marchand to win. It's just his will to win. He wants to win so bad, and I respect it. Um, but yeah, I don't think he'll be able to get away with sort of the stuff that he did in the Leaf series. And then one final thing, I think, where also the Bruins had such an advantage in the first few games on the power play. Toronto finished the series, I think it was 1 for 20. And the Bruins in the first few games, I don't know exactly what they were on the power play, but they were scoring. So they were just dominating the Leafs in special teams, which the Panthers have a better power play than the Leafs. I knock on wood. I don't think we're going to go 1 for 20 in this series on the power play. And secondly, I think our penalty kill is a lot better than the Leafs. And that's why I think the Leafs in the later games in 5, 6, 7, when the penalties and the power play opportunities start to dry up, while the Leafs were able to come back because they weren't at such a disadvantage for just doing nothing on the power play. So that's why I think then the Leafs did come back. So I think special teams, I want to give the advantage to the Panthers again. Honestly, I think the Panthers win this series. When it's said and done in the special teams aspect, I think they have more power play goals than the Leafs or than the Bruins. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I am a little bit worried to see how they fare against arguably a potentially better power play. I mean, they did really well against Tampa, so I mean, we'll see if they can keep that momentum going against Boston. But they have a much deeper and a much better penalty kill than last year. And that was our biggest weak point. And we might have been able to win it in maybe 5 games or 6 games last year against Boston instead of 7 games if we had the penalty kill as strong as it was this year. But with our penalty kill and how bad it was last year, and now it's like actually good, all you have to do is go ahead and just stay in the box, don't give them any opportunities, and just play the penalty kill that they're playing against Tampa, shut down Pastrnak, and they can win. But I think it is going to come down, as you were saying before. I mean, penalty kill. Their power play is a little bit better. I think the Panthers might have a slight edge in the power play factor, but I mean, it is really good when you have Barkov, Kachuk, and Reinhart on the same line. And of course, we were seeing how we didn't even get to see like really Reinhart and Kachuk on the bumper like the entirety of the 5 games against Tampa. And the power play is still pretty okay, but I mean, it did struggle a little bit. So if they do struggle, it'll be a little bit tough to get past Boston. But I mean, I believe in this team. I believe they can regroup and get the power play working again, because I mean, it's been a while since the power play has been on point. But they get the power play on figured out, then yeah, this series it could be wrapped early.
Yeah, yeah. So I will just say one final sort of matchup thing, and then my key to the series, and then if you have a key too, you could throw it out there, and then we'll touch on the game one itself here, which I do kind of have a different view of than the whole series. But so for me, I also I want to give Maurice honestly the edge in coaching. And I don't want to say I don't think much of Jim Montgomery, but I think he's gotten a lot of credit that I don't know if he necessarily deserved. It's funny, before Game 7, people were saying that if they lose Game 7, he's fired because you can't blow 3-1 leads in back-to-back seasons, and then now everyone's like back on the Jim Montgomery train. He's great and all this and everything, but yeah, I give the edge to Maurice just because I think the decisions that Montgomery has put himself in, where he has to decide every game who is playing in net, it's tough. It's not like any game it mattered who played in goal, but it's just a decision in the locker room. I feel like that has ripple effects. But as we saw when the one game Olmark played, he played completely fine. Like, he gave them every chance to win that game. They just didn't win. And Swayman as well was fantastic in every game. And the team had a chance to win, even though they didn't win when Swayman was playing. So I really don't think it matters who they do play in net. And it's a bigger deal than everyone makes it. But it's still a decision to make. And when you're deciding between that, if it is even a decision where he spends time on, it's more time you're spending it on than other stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, my key. You go while I think of my key. No, my apologies.
Okay, I'll say Paul Maurice is the veteran here too. So Montgomery's definitely a little bit of a question mark, because obviously he blew a 3-1 lead last year and he almost blew it again this year. So there's obviously, as you said, ripple effects. So that's definitely something to look out for. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and then I would say my key to this series, it's Jeremy Swayman. If the Bruins have any chance to win, he's going to have to be the best goalie on the planet for at least 4 games, which is a possibility. Agree. But yeah, and then I would say for the Panthers, if you get into a situation where you find yourself down, the key would be Sam Bennett. Him coming back just gives the Panthers another center that's superior to who he's going to be matched up against, and the physicality not expert, but what he brings to the table in physicality opens the door for other guys to play their game more and focus on offense when he's bringing the physicality.
Yeah, my key coming into the series, and this is going to be a little bit of a tough one to say, but I think it's going to be physical and stick to your game plan, be physical. And Boston's coming off a series where they just played 7 games. They just finished up their series just 2 days ago. They're not fresh. They're rather worn out, probably. Be physical, keep them moving the entire time, let them wear themselves out. And we got the fresher legs, we have the fresher team. You do not want to get into a situation where you go ahead and you wear yourselves down to the point where Boston has an edge. So, I mean, if you go ahead and keep the physicality on, then, I mean, it could be a series where Boston looks a little bit worn out and a little bit tired. And that's what you kind of want that in a series right now, especially when you're going up against a really good team in Boston. So, if they keep the physicality and the pressure on them, then, I think we can win this series easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking at the game tonight, um, I think this would be sort of the one game that if you're the Bruins, you got to have this game with the Panthers having the rest and being a bit rusty, and you're just coming right in after an intense emotional game 7. You're still feeling positive after that. You
Yeah.
just got to roll into this game, and if you want any chance in this series, you got to find a way to win tonight if you're the Bruins. Personally, I don't think that does happen. Um, but if it does, I would say that the reason is probably because the Panthers just are a bit rusty. Bob traditionally isn't great, I would say, when he has extended rest. So that's something to look out for. But again, I have full confidence in this team. I do think they get it done tonight. But that, like you were saying, the intensity to start the game, I think is where the Panthers have to find a way to match the Bruins with the rest. And if they can just either weather the storm if there is a storm, or bring it to them in the beginning of the game and say like, "Hey, we're here, we're flying, we're shot out of a cannon, we're ready for you." And the Panthers have a good first period, even if they don't have the lead, then I feel fine because the second period, by the time the second period starts, like all the rest and the rust, all that's who cares anymore? That's all done.
Yeah, going back to what you said about Bob, I mean, yeah, he did have a little bit of a struggle last year when we had that extended period of time of rest before the finals, and we faced Vegas, and Bob looked completely worn out and broken. So I mean, but I mean, he looked really good when he faced Carolina, and that's what I'm most concerned about because I mean, we faced Carolina, we had a decent bit of rest there, and he had his best series when he faced Carolina after that. So we'll see how Bob looks tonight. But I think we might see a first period that's a little bit different than what we saw in Tampa. I think Boston, being the fresher team, not being the fresher team, but being the team that's coming off of a series 7, game 7, they might be flying tonight. And I could really see Boston not necessarily taking this game, but I could see them taking that first period and putting us in, like trying to put us in a stranglehold early on. But I think Florida will be able to weather the storm, as you said. And as long as Florida gets out buzzing in the second period or third period, or maybe even the first period, depends on how it goes. We should be able to take this game easily.
Yeah, so personally, I'm not going to bet it, but if I was looking at betting the Bruins, that'd be my bet. Exactly, like the Bruins first period. I think that's where they would have any advantage if there is one to be had in this game. But this is a team, the veteran team in the Panthers. Like, if you think we're the only ones saying this, and Paul Maurice and the players aren't saying this in the locker room, then I think you're crazy. So yeah, I think they're going to be ready for the task tonight. I'm excited for the game. I'm not thrilled about the start time. It's a little late for me, but
I was just having a conversation before. I'm like, man, if you're gonna have a late start, you got to go all the way late. You got to go like 10 o'clock, all the way late. If I'm gonna stay up, I'm staying all the way up. I don't want this
exactly.
8 o'clock. I
I'm
much
I'm gonna be too
prefer 7.
excited after the game to go to sleep, anyways.
I
So,
know. Yeah, I know.
but yeah, I think this is gonna be another great game. Another great series. I'll give my series predictions here, and then we'll wrap up. I'm being completely serious here. I'm bringing out the Brooms. I think this is
Wow.
going to be a very quick series here. I think this game, if they get this one tonight, I think it's over in 5. If not, I think we could be heading to a sweep here. I mean, just like I said, we're so far superior here. While I'm not disrespecting the Bruins or Jeremy Swayman, I still think it's a complete possibility that he stands on his head, but he has to stay on his head. The Bruins' margin for error in this series is small. This is a better Panthers team, and what the Leafs did to the Bruins on the forecheck that caused so many problems, the Panthers are like what the Leafs did times 100. They're going to be flying out of the gates, forechecking so hard and aggressive. So yeah, I think this is going to be a quick series. I think if Jeremy Swayman can steal a game, maybe it goes 6. But again, it's completely serious. I think it's going to be 4. And you would not hear me say that often. I'm usually someone who's very scared to put predictions out there like that for fear of looking stupid. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
I think it's going to be Panthers in 5 or Panthers in 6. I personally more towards 5, but I think we're going to sweep the home series. I think we're going to go ahead and win every game at home. And I think they'll take maybe a game 3. And then I think we'll take game 4, and then we'll head over and we'll take game 5 back at home again, just like in Tampa. I mean, just like against Tampa. So I have my predictions of Panthers in 5. I don't think it's a sweep necessarily because I think Swayman is a good enough goalie to be able to take a couple games against us. So, and if he is on point like he kind of was against Toronto, he was amazing against Toronto, then yeah, I could see this series going even maybe even 7. But I think the Panthers take the series in probably 5.
Yeah, and I think as well, it'd be good for the Panthers to get this done quickly, because that Rangers Carolina looks like it's going to be a complete dogfight, and the winner coming out may have nothing left. So another reason, I mean, not that they go out and try to like lose any game or something to make it a longer series, but completely, I think the Panthers would be doing themselves a lot of favors here, wrapping this up quickly. One final thing that I do want to say, that I see when people are making the case for the Bruins to win this series, they're like, oh well, the Bruins like they have the revenge factor. They want revenge. If you think in the Stanley Cup playoffs in round 2 that any of these guys have a motivational factor edge over another, you're out of your mind. You think the Panthers like don't want to win the Stanley Cup? Do you think any team left is like doesn't want to win the Stanley Cup? Like, but if they had revenge, then they get the bump. Like, that's crazy. There's no motivational factor here for either team. Both teams really want to win, and they're going to do everything they want, they can to win. So if you're looking at this like, oh, be careful, the Bruins have revenge on their minds, then you could throw that out the window. That has nothing to do with it. That has no effects on what will happen in this series.
Yeah, I've had that conversation with my buddies and family members too. They're saying, "Oh, but Boston's gonna have that revenge factor. They're gonna be hungry. They're gonna be hungry to face what they want revenge." I was like, "Yes, but the Panthers just lost in the Cup Finals. We are called redemption right now. They have just as much as like the hunger to get back to the finals. And if you want to get to the finals, you have to get through Boston. So I think it equals out."
Totally. I saw that and I was like, just like, what? Like, come on, guys. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be another awesome crowd here. I think it'll probably be a decent amount. Last series, there was so many Bruins fans at the games. I think there. I mean, with anywhere in South Florida, there's a ton of just people from different cities here. So we'll see. I mean, honestly, if I'll be there tonight, and if it's like all Panthers fans, like it's not going to be all, but if it's as many as there were for the Lightning, I would be really pleased, and kudos to the fans, because last series it was honestly like maybe 50-50. Like whenever there was a let's go Panthers chant, there'd be a let's go Bruins on the other side that was just as loud. So I think that's a possibility. It could happen, but with it being the second round, and it was easy, like you knew the matchup well in advance last year. So I don't think there'll be as many Bruins fans, but we'll see. I'll be there. I'll be wearing red, and looking for redemption. So yeah. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I can't wait to go ahead and see how the stadium looks. I mean, this is like the first year that I thought like the entire stadium for pretty much like when I went for game 2, That was like the first time I've ever seen the stadium that was like 90% Panther fans. It felt like last year it did feel like it was like 50-50. So I'm really hoping the pattern it's a pattern here where the Panthers are finally getting more fans of their fan base into the stadium. I mean, they've been, but I'm really hoping it continues where it's like even if it's 75-25, it feels better than what it was last year. So as long as the Panther fans show their support tonight, I'll be really excited.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm excited for this. Hopefully, we'll do a victory breakdown here, either tomorrow or maybe another preview before the game. But yeah, we'll be back here again with some more videos, more breakdowns, and hopefully we got plenty more of these to come. So everyone, please thank you for tuning in. Please, on your way out, hit the like button if you haven't already. Drop a comment, score prediction, series prediction, whatever. If you want to call me an idiot for saying that it's going to be a sweep, feel free to do so. I'd love to see that. Tell me the Bruins are going to win in four on the other end. So yeah, I'm ready for the Panthers to get this going and keep this thing rolling. So yeah, from us here at Panthers versus the World, thank you for tuning in and go Cats go.